Hello, welcome everyone inside the Update Studio. I'm Tommy Marquez, joined at the desk by these two distinguished gentlemen.
Everything from what's happening from the season, what our role has been with it, and the rule book and what these events are going to look like all of these changes, we're talking about like monumental changes to a season and a system that had been relatively untouched for the most part for the last 6-7 years. And now you have over 500,000 participants and fans based on last year's numbers that are just like having this whole world change. Like there's going to be some clarification that's needed, and people were used to getting that clarification from us.
Conversations that I've had with people just out and about, they don't seem to understand what the level of coverage that they are going to get throughout the season and what they can expect as fans to see from all these sanctioned events, the Open and the games. And I think some people are surprised that it's going to be a lot less than what they are used to. And I think we need to set expectations there so everybody knows, okay, this is what we're walking into here in 2019.
Yeah. During that time period when all of this was going down, there was radio silence as directed on our side. We weren't allowed to say anything, we weren't allowed to clarify anything, and that for the most part has continued. There are other media outlets that have touched on some of that stuff, but like still to the level that that they're used to, that hasn't happened. So hopefully we can kind of fill in the gaps there.
Since I've turned 30, I've had to notice that like certain aspects of the training I have to dial down. I can't crush myself every day going heavy. Within an hour training session, I can't try and fit like 3 workouts in. It's like, I can stick to a class time where it's a little bit more moderate. I can just do a class at jiu-jitsu where we're only drilling, or like kickboxing is, a lot of technique work and stuff like that, and be okay with that versus like feeling like I have this need to just like empty the tank every time. I think that's maybe the maturation process of not being 21 or 22 anymore.
Nice work. Gotta push it on the bike. Whew. Bike. This thing's evil, huh? Nice job.
Good work.
Good job, team.
Squat business, yeah. Tough one.
In my role kind of as an analyst and as an on-camera person for CrossFit and someone who studies the sport and studies the lifestyle methodology, also as a trainer, I was also a gym owner as well, and I'm essentially on the front lines in terms of being a spokesperson for CrossFit. So there is a great deal of importance for me to not only be a good spokesperson, but also to practice what I preach when it comes to like certain lifestyle factors like training, nutrition, sleep, taking care of my body. And it's not like I was eating poorly before, but maybe from a nutrition standpoint, I hadn't like fully committed one way or the other. And so I think from when it came to that, I think there was definitely some value and some authenticity in me committing to something nutritionally that would benefit me greatly, and add to the other things that I was always doing as part of this like holistic approach that we kind of preached at CrossFit, and I was kind of representing every time I got on the camera. So from that standpoint, from a career standpoint, it definitely made sense for me to like back up what I'm saying and what I would preach to other people, because we're at events and I'm out there doing the media thing, and I run into people and they're like, hey, like asking advice and talking shop, and those are opportunities for me to impart wisdom or anything that I might have learned, or to be able to share and swap stuff like that. So if I don't have a basis of understanding from a nutrition standpoint, or something that I can commit to or say with any sort of authenticity, then it kind of takes away, and it's a missed opportunity, in my opinion. And that had happened a couple times where I'm like, I've done zone a little bit, but I haven't fully committed to it. I've done a couple other things, but I haven't fully committed. But like I want to commit to something, be able to have firsthand knowledge of like how it made a difference for me, and be able to maybe share that, because that's, if I'm being honest, that's why I got into working for CrossFit, is to be able to help people. And it's not just helping people in the gym. If I can offer up some help nutritionally, like from my experience, then that's just another way I might be able to help another person. So I think that was the final nail in the coffin for me, when like I need to start tracking macros, or at least do something committed for long term to see how that plays out. Beach workout. Right after the games, they started announcing changes to the CrossFit Games season, so that they were going to start sanctioning events, starting with Dubai, and that the rumor that we had been hearing that regionals were going away was starting to manifest itself, and we were told regionals were going away. That was more specific to the game season, although it was kind of a signal towards larger changes organizationally that was going to happen with us and involve us. Right after that happened, the first round of layoffs hit. All of us got together within the company. We had a company meeting. We asked if this is going to continue or if we're going to be safe. We were told we were going to be safe. That wasn't the case. A couple months later, after more sanctioned events were changed, more details started being known about the changes to the season, like qualifying through the Open with national champions. And then eventually we just got an email one Sunday, and we were all told we had an HR meeting, and basically our entire media team was laid off. It was kind of this drastic change and complete 180 away from the media approach and all the things that we had worked for the last 5-6 years. So suddenly we were no longer employees for CrossFit, and we were put into not just a new employment situation, but a new landscape for the CrossFit Game season and the community that we had been working for. So everything that we had been working around and working with that we could potentially work with in the future was all changed as well. So it was like this huge state of flux. And, that's kind of where we started to pick up from here. And almost immediately afterwards, the Morning Chalk Hub hit me up. Justin, their owner, asked if I wanted to come on board and help with them in some of their games coverage, which after some deliberation and talking with them, it was a good fit to work with them. So that was really cool. And then just have slowly been kind of figuring out what other avenues to continue to cover the sport, to continue to work for the community, and to continue to do what I love, which is support CrossFit, the CrossFit Games, and the CrossFit community and the affiliate community as best as possible by, through media and legitimizing and shining a light on the amazing things that go on.
think that in general, the idea that like you're pushing yourself to be better and like touching on the like your limits on a daily basis and trying to expand that is something that is pretty common amongst all the entire community. And I think at least there may not be a direct one-to-one correlation, but putting yourself in that environment where you're testing yourself like that and you're not necessarily guaranteed an outcome is like a kind of like a daily crucible thing that I think in general makes you a better person, and then is something that, like you mentioned, the top athletes are doing as well. So by doing so, I'm putting myself in a similar mentality as them daily, to some extent. If I'm putting myself in a similar situation as them every day, I'm learning about how someone would respond to that, right? And I'm seeing the benefits, the drawbacks, all the minutia and details that come with putting yourself in that environment. And so when those similar things play out in the competition floor, play out in a training setting, I have a firsthand experience and understanding of that, and it allows me to relate, and it allows me to take that and then translate it as an analyst in a way that other people will understand that too, having been there. I had the backing of CrossFit previously, I had the CrossFit stamp of approval, but it also meant like that I had to make sure that I lived up to that. There was an expectation personally to live up to that stamp, and now that I'm freelance, I have to continue that, right? I have to continue that level, in my opinion, that level of excellence that we strived for at CrossFit, to make sure that I'm still providing something of value. Because if I don't provide something of value to people, then as an analyst and with my perspective and my take on CrossFit and the CrossFit Games, then I can totally understand why people wouldn't listen to me, wouldn't give a damn what I say. And that's not what I'm shooting for. I want to provide value and ultimately help people. So putting myself in situations that require me to analyze and figure out the best way possible will definitely kind of keep that edge, that knife sharp for me when I come over and now I'm looking at, the same open workout as 50,000 other people, or I'm looking at the same sanction event, athlete roster, and I'm trying to pick what the best story is, of the story that the community might pick. And so far, at least in the last year of me doing martial arts, it's been a huge help for me. It's a way of not just kind of resting on my laurels and trusting that what I've built so far is good enough, and that I need to continue to build on that, and keep that, like I said, keep that edge sharp, so that when unexpected things like this, like getting let go from CrossFit happen, I'm ready to go to continue on that path to help people.
We've been just pushing random buttons for forever. See if that works. Was I in 2 yesterday?
What was that?
Was I in 2 last time?
Yes, yeah.
I think the reason we wanted to start this is that we've talked for a long time, Tommy and I, about staying involved in the sport and wanting to continue to cover it and bring our perspective to people. And we kicked around a lot of different ideas. We talked about, well, maybe we can do an update show out of my garage, and we looked into that. And we talked about trying to duplicate what we did in the update studio at a different location. Financially, it just wasn't going to make sense for us. We just didn't have the resources to do it at a level that we wanted to do it.
Yeah. We didn't want to immediately jump in and provide something that is less than people's expectations of us, because we worked pretty hard over the last 6-7 years to get things to a certain point that the community now expects, I would hope, and secondly, what they deserve. They deserve top quality coverage of their sport. They deserve legitimate media. So this definitely was one of the ways that we could help provide that as quickly as possible.
There wasn't a whole lot of planning behind it. We tried to get some stuff together, and we said, let's sort of shove this thing off and see what happens. And if people like it, then great. Then maybe we'll take the next step. But right now, we want to limit it to starting small with a podcast, something that we can do on a regular basis. and continue to use our contacts. Tommy has a lot of conversations with athletes and coaches and people who are involved in the sport. I still do as well. And this we thought was the best way that we could bring that to the community. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Talking Elite Fitness podcast. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sean Woodland with Tommy Marquez. And on today's episode, we are breaking down the second sanctioned event. It's Wodapalooza, taking place this coming weekend in Miami, Florida.
There are things like nutrition and fitness. I mean, you can boil it down to a bunch of different things. I try to simplify it as much as possible for me. For me, it's a simple matter of input-output. Like, I want my output, whether it be jiu-jitsu, whether it be, being a good boyfriend, a good son, a good brother, good in the CrossFit community, good here kicking Thai pads. I want my output to be as good as possible. So in order for that to happen, I need to make sure my input is good and it supports that. That may be oversimplifying a little bit, but it's really been the sticking point for me that allows me to understand why I'm eating the way that I do, why I'm tracking the way that I do, why I use WAG to help me do that, and why it's important to continue to do that and build a lifelong system that's going to help me be successful. The future of fitness is a little up in the air, and I don't say that to call into question whether or not it'll continue to be a viable thing. It's more so the direction. For the longest time, sport of fitness as the CrossFit game was essentially controlled by CrossFit Inc., and they've since decentralized the media output. They're kind of decentralizing the event organizations by basically outsourcing regionals to all these sanctioned events. And I think there could be a point where the CrossFit Games as an event is no longer the premier test of fitness.